Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Heretic Hammer Podcast. I'm your host, Marshall, and this is my co-host, Dylan.
Hello, hello.
And today, we meant to do this. This is a topic we intended to do leading into the week of the announcement of 40k 11th edition during Adepticon. Or it was announced at the beginning of Adepticon. And two things kind of happened. First, I had quite possibly one of the worst and most frustrating tournament performances of my life on Thursday. And then second, they didn't release a lot of information, which makes it really hard to talk about information when they don't give you any.
Okay.
You know, it's a real crux of the thing. You know? Like, we want to talk about what's coming. And the only thing we got was essentially, we'll tell you later.
What I heard through the grapevine was that they gave you quite a bit, but it was marred in technical issues and microphones that didn't work correctly.
Oh, yes. No, there were plenty of announcements for sure. Kill Team got a bunch of cool things. They are essentially re-upping the boss battle stuff. So we're getting like cool things in that round, which we'll talk about another later. But AOS got one of the coolest models that I think that they could have possibly announced. And I didn't intend to talk about this, but now I'm in a position where it's been brought up, and I must speak on it. The Cog Fort.
What?
We have the Cog Fort.
Come again?
A literal walking fortress for the cities of Sigmar. However, it may be naturally for cities of Sigmar. But the fun thing about AOS, right, as a game, is they have a thing called Armies of Renown, right? And so part of that means that there are armies that you can, it's essentially special armies regiments of renown. Sorry, wrong phrase. So these are special regiments that you can bring into the system, because AOS's army building is kind of like you create multiple regiments that becomes an army, right? So a regiment around is just a slap in, like, bam, here's a flat like regiment, like everything, all the special stuff and everything is, and all the total points is calculated for you, but they can come from various things. Mm-hmm. So this Cog Fort is on its own as just this walking fortress, a regiment of renown, which means it can be run in any army.
Any army.
Yeah. So my dream is, I think personally, I really want to one day, you know, however I may come across the period to buy this. I want it. And then maybe, especially as like a golden demon thing, I would love to load it with Skaven. Like, the Skaven have hijacked the Cog Fort and they've fucked it up. And now they're just riding it like wild, crazy rats. So like, that was a highlight. The Cog Fort was a highlight, right? That was awesome.
Dude, how could it not be? It looks like Howl's Moving Medieval Times Dinner and Entertainment.
You know what?
I love the chains, by the way. The chain work at the bottom is exquisite.
Oh, yeah. Dude, the AOS team, like, I know we've talked about the fact that, like, there's not a crazy amount of interest for this to do, like, fantasy stuff. but AOS's modelers are fucking killing it every time. They just rock it, dude. Like they seem to just have the most freedom, and I think that translates to them getting, like, I don't think personally that a lot of 40k models recently have been bad. I think there's honestly like very few models that have been bad. It's just they've unfortunately taken the zeitgeist a little bit, but like in 40k. But like the AOS stuff just has this nifty creativity that just gives it a little bit more that I think we don't see a whole lot of in 40k. I think one of the best examples though recently was Huron Blackheart's like command squad little gaggle of protectors. You know, adding like the Xenos, the lizard Xenos, you know, the captain and her like transporting like command hover like circle. Like that shit's cool.
Yeah.
So I think they're capable in the 40k side, but AOS always just has this unique like way of doing things. However, with 40k, there was a number of things announced. You know, we had the pleasure of getting an 11th edition announcement, and you know,
it happened just like you predicted.
Yeah, I know, crazy. The
or
funny
will
thing,
predict. I've already forgotten how our timeline works.
I forgot what you said. No, well, I think part of it was that they weren't going to announce it, or I think that was like part of it.
I think I was insisting that they weren't going to announce it.
It was going to be something else, like entirely. That they were going to like 180 something.
I said a lot of crazy things. Whenever
that
episode is available, unless it's already available, in which case go listen to it. I said a lot of crazy stuff. All right.
Yeah.
Or will say a lot of crazy stuff.
So we here's the thing though. There was two things as I was kind of alluding to earlier, right? So as you alluded to, giving that people online actually heard probably more detail than I did in the crowd, because here's the thing about that, right? Eventually,
are you sure?
They kind of, yeah, because here's the thing. What you could hear if you go later in the video, right, and you hear the audio, right, that specifically, I forget his name. I think like there's the bald, deeper voiced bearded man. You could hear him pretty clearly in the room. The other guy does not have much carry in his voice. And when he would talk, you could barely hear him over the crowd, like the crowd talking with each other.
Wow.
So like you literally could hear more online than I could in the audience. It was rough. And here's a side tangent here for a moment, right? As somebody, right, I have to preface this. As somebody who has done live professional video streaming in a live audience hybrid production for multiple years in my life. I haven't done it in a minute, but I did it for many years. The insanity that they still cannot figure this shit out baffles me. Bro, I wanted to run back there and be like, all you gotta do is find a dynamic mic, plug it into the board, and fucking just route it. Stop trying to do the stupid shit with the condenser microphones. What are you doing?
Is it something where the Games Workshop staff should have been on top of that, or is it the venue staff that's in control of like
they clearly hired
the audio
somebody.
input sources and such?
Yeah, it's like they're clearly hiring somebody. You know, I don't know if they're doing it at multiple venues, but the thing is, the same problem is happening. It's the same problem at every venue, is that they try to do non-close to the mic, you know, like this not close to the mic dynamic microphones. Like shit, dude. Like I've done live productions where I've done a live podcast recording where they we still just gave them SM7Bs, and that still works great because they have good rejection because they're dynamic microphones. It just like, I'm like, there's a reason that the the SM58 has not been, there's a reason that they still use that, like, what, 100 years later. Like, that microphone has been around for how long? And it's still used. If you go to a concert, that band person, they're using a 58. Like, it's not, why are we, it's like, the thing I could tell, it's like they're trying to do too much. It's like, there are simple answers to this problem. And it's like, and then they removed a microphone. So they made them have to like use one microphone. So they had to like talk into it like this. I'm going to lose it. We got to stop. I got to stop myself. I'm going to go on this way too long. But anyway, so you guys heard it better than I did in the crowd. So I had to obviously also somewhat like listen to it later, which I did not do that night, and therefore would have not done into a recording on the Thursday, which was a big reason that I felt like I had no idea what to talk about that day. But as I also alluded to, like, they kind of just didn't give a whole lot. They were like, yeah, here's this intercessor. Woo! Common infantry units. Like, literally everyone around me was like, yeah. Yeah. People got excited when they showed the singular orc boy, because when they brought up that, well, specifically because they brought up the fact that it can have a shooter and a chopper at the same time. And this has been like an annoyance amongst the orc players, because essentially the way it has worked for a long time, and the thing that this refresh will fix, is the kit. Essentially, you could only run orc boys as a shooter squad or a chopper squad. The problem is the kit only let you build half of each of those. So essentially one kit was half of two kits. It was really dumb, because you could only build one with a chopper or a shooter. And so you either built them into shooter boys or chopper boys. The problem is the box never let you build a full squad of shooters. And if I'm wrong about this, I was talking to an orc player during the weekend, so I apologize if something about this is wrong. This is the way it was told to me. Regardless, I've heard from multiple people though that the kit was a problem, and that it honestly was just, it used to be that they could carry choppers and shooters at the same time. They got rid of it for some reason, and now it's back. And that's what's important, is that people like that, and that's good. The fact that they just announced that you're okay to kit bash your Space Marines really is kind of a lame announcement.
Yeah.
Like, people just be 3D printing heads at this point. Like, let's be real. Like, you can go on Etsy and buy like a bag, like a thing of like 50 Space Marine heads for like $2. Like, let's not be pretending. And probably, I don't know if it's that cheap. I'm just saying, like, saying that you can pay a bunch of extra money for extra Space Marine heads ain't it.
You're saying that even in having it be like something that you can now do in an official capacity doesn't really excite you all that much,
right?
Because
you
there's
could do it,
unofficial alternatives that are already in place.
Not even that, but there are official alternatives that were already in existence too. Like, there were various kits. You just always, if you built any form of Space Marine, you always end up with a bunch of extra heads. I have a bunch of extra CSM heads from like the 3 actual building kits that I have. I like, most of my CSM is secondhand, but I have still a bunch of extra heads just from the kill team, the Raptors, and like one set of Legionaries. So
okay.
Yeah. So there's no reason for this to have been the announcement. It's kind of lackluster. But I thought there are other things that also are kind of coming in and around this. So let's talk about some of those extra things too. Some of the things that maybe we actually missed in our time when we were talking about other stuff. And the first one of which being the just sick ass new Defiler. It is
New Defiler.
so good. Yeah, the Defiler has been updated. It went on pre-order today and then will be coming out soon. Yeah, our boy
I had to
got
breathe
an
away from the
upgrade.
mic on that one.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh yeah.
This looks sick.
It is so good. I had mixed feelings with the old Defiler. Classic Dawn of War nerd in me really likes the classic look a bit. In terms of like when that was the only option. Let me preface. When that was the only option, I had like a soft spot for it. I'm like, I heard it was a nightmare to build. Don't know how true that is, but that's what I heard.
The goo
all that
on
this
the like
so
interior forearm on the right hand side.
Yeah.
The like goo flesh layer.
Not even that. Like,
wild.
If you look at like
I'm looking.
If you like look at like the optional missile pod where like literally the inside of the missile pod is like the things holding the missile is just gooey flesh.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's so cool.
It's very Nightmare from Soul Calibur.
Oh yeah. Which is what I feel like so much of what like, demon engines are.
Yes. And as you recall, I like me some demon engines.
Oh yeah. So, the lore generally is about the same. It's demon stuffed in machine, but this one specifically finds some joy in the way that it has all this extra killy potential. The fun part with the kit is that it comes with 10 heads. So 4 for the primary chaos gods. There's an Iron Warrior specific one, a Word Bearer specific one. That's cool. Some representation. And then just a bunch of general kind of good chaosy ones, the horns, getting some spikes. But the fun part to me is that the legs are able to have some supposedly like decent level of articulation for like going up and down. So that the idea is that it would let you, giving you a little bit of joint movement, it lets you base them however you want. Like, you could put them on a rock or a piece of terrain or something like that. Like you can kind of see in the initial picture, like one of the legs is like kicked up. It doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
All 4 could be down, or they could be on something, or they could whatever. And that is just really cool to me for 2 reasons. Because it just gives you a lot of dynamic posing, which is good. We need more of that. But then B, if you lightly base it, so it's not like super duper attached to the base, or you get in a way where it could just detach from it. You could just like walk around with it a little, like lift its leg and walk around with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like this guy, the Defiler is like super fleshy now, and it's super gross, and I love it. Like it was so less fleshy before. Now it's super fleshy. It kind of looks like what was it actually called? I forgot its name. Sadler kept referring to it as It in the original Resident Evil 4. Oh, U3. Yeah.
Oh yeah, U3.
Yeah, like it reminds me a lot of like U3.
It's the guy you fight in the elevator, ain't it?
Or they're like the hanging storage containers.
Yeah, the storage containers that drop down. Yep.
Which unsure of the purpose of those, but it made for a good boss fight.
Cool video game.
Yeah.
Was the purpose of it. A lot of this game is like, this is not a video game podcast, by the way. A lot of this game is just like, why did we put it in there? Because it's cool.
Yeah, pretty much. This is our like 6th iteration of this game. At this point, I'm just going because it's cool. Damn it.
Yep.
God, the development of Resident Evil 4 is just like amazing story. I love talking about it.
Yeah, the Hookman demo and everything. Yeah.
Oh, everything.
It's incredible. But we're not a video game podcast. We gotta get back on track.
So we've got so next then we're going to the war world.
Okay.
So we taught this
All
was
right.
initially announced before Adepticon.
Spoilers.
And you know, I knew that there was gonna be the time, right, that we were gonna have to talk about Armageddon. And I knew that when the edition was launched, when the 11th edition was launched, that it would come with some new edition lore. I did not think that they would come at the same time. What the fuck? So now we've got two things on our plate here. I now not only have to teach you about I think now 4 wars for Armageddon, but then there's going to be new lore for Armageddon when the edition launches later this year. So it's like we're really hitting it strong on Armageddon coming up here. So I've got some work for me. I know what I'll be doing on my free time. Thanks, GW. But there are some things that are good to at least denote from this announcement that we can talk about, because one of the semi-benefits is that a lot of the wars for Armageddon have some realms of like malleability. The two that are, I'd say, the most connected are the second and the third war, if I remember correctly. The first war is really important for the which we referenced previously a little bit, the month of sorrow. The first war for Armageddon is kind of the good lead into that. The second is when that's kind of the most contiguous good like story for everything. The first and the fourth are more about like the World Eaters and Grey Knights and and Space Wolves, mainly with the first one. So there's kind of a mixed thing here. But for 11th, the base lore that we kind of got for that we can expect going into it, right, is that Wazdaka Gutsmek, great name, is bringing his speed war to the war world. Yark,
how cordial.
Yes. Yark, whose death was greatly exaggerated, has returned as well. So we've talked about in the Guard episode the fact that Yark is this very formidable character, and that we were in this scenario of like, we believe he's dead, but we have not been told why or how.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've been told why or how we thought he was dead. So, and this is, like I said, this is a whole thing, because the thing was, this fight isn't in specifically anything about like the third or fourth war for Armageddon, right? Like, this is a scenario of like, this whole fight is between stories. So that's why I'm talking about it now, because we're talking about going into 11th. So the story is that, kind of somewhere between, I'm guessing between the third and fourth war for Armageddon, Yark and Gazgul Thraka, who still technically is leading the charge into Armageddon, but he is now using Wazdaka to like they're kind of trying to pincer maneuver the planet. So he's kind of he's tempting Wazdaka with a warp drive to help him take his speedwalk even farther into the galaxy.
I prefer control over Wazdaka personally, but yeah.
So it's somewhere in this time, Yark and Gazgul fought. Yark was assisted by the Space Wolves, but the Great Beast would end up crushing Yark in his iron kind of, he's mostly, honestly, machine at this point, but one of his iron grip is essentially his iron grip. It was in this that many believed he had died, because he essentially seemed to be crushed and lifelessly go to the ground. However, Space Wolf's chaplain would take him, and they would not only revive him, but they would do so where he is obviously worse for wear, having largely been constructed through more cybernetics and essentially living with like a consistent headache all the time. Yarrick has returned, but in almost a pained and just even more aged existence than he was already in. And he's pretty old. He's been around for a long time. But upon returning to the war world in a gambit, Yarrick has called for greater help among the stars and would be answered mainly or first by the Blood Angels, who have a long history of defending Armageddon. We'll talk about that in a moment. But also by contingents of course, Ultramarines, Salamanders, Space Wolves, and a dozen more chapters.
A dozen?
Yeah. So we'll learn more about the counterattack when it launches. So that's kind of the primer we've been given going into the edition. The funny thing is, there will actually be some Armageddon lore that releases before this episode, or not before this episode, before this edition launches, because the last like narrative campaign thing that they're releasing for 10th edition is also Armageddon. There is so much Armageddon content coming.
That's a lot of Armageddon.
Yeah. I wonder if people are going to be sick of it.
Somebody call Bruce Willis.
Was that the video game, or was that like he in the Armageddon movie?
Yeah, so there's the video game Armageddon, the PlayStation video game.
Well, that's Apocalypse.
No, you're right. Apocalypse is the PS1 video game, but he was also in Armageddon.
He was in those. There's such different names. They have such different meanings.
Extremely different. Learn the lore.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of,
only one of them has Aerosmith in it, which is also an A name.
I don't know. See, Apocalypse has lived in the back of my mind, like for a very long time, despite only playing it through a demo disc.
I was literally, this is not a video game podcast. I was literally just going to say, please tell me that you're going to reference the PlayStation Underground demo disc that had Apocalypse on it, because that's also
that was a demo disc.
Most of my experience with that game.
Yeah, I didn't remember which.
It is volume 6, I believe.
Oh God, that you know that.
Well, the ones I spent the most time on were volume 2 and volume 6. Volume 2 had A Bug's Life. But yeah, volume 6. Volume 6 also had Star Wars Masters of Terrace Kasi on there. But this is not a video game podcast. But yeah.
All right. Coolly though, what we did get was and they show this in the video. So I'll have to grab the image itself, but they released the image of the box art, right? And it's really box. Cool because it's this homage to the second edition box. So like it has this like kind of, they did this cool thing where they like dissolve them over each other.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, it was actually really it's pretty cool like that they just doing this. So I like that. That's a neat thing.
That's neat.
That's neat.
That's neat.
But we also the models will look very different. It's also funny because you can really see how like change in tone that everything is too.
Yeah, because that second one looks like small soldiers, and compared to what it currently looks like.
Right. Yeah, well, specifically it helps that the part of the Blood Angels lore was they're all specifically the Blood Angels are all hot now. I was like, for some reason the lore edition they decided
an important
to add
update.
Yeah. But I thought it was really cool. But also at least later we did get like shortly afterward. I think it was next day. Was day? No, it was a few days later. No, well, oops. I thought it was shorter than that. It didn't feel like it took that long, but I guess here we are. They did release, they revealed a new boss knob, which is, I think, the thing they should have revealed at the box in the first place. But here we are. Like, they could have shown the lieutenant and then also this guy, right? If they didn't show us another Space Marine captain, I wouldn't have given a shit. But if they at least gave us this. We do know, though, that the box is going to have a new Weird Boy. And that's really cool because Weird Boys have kind of been ignored for a while. And I'm glad that we're getting it back, especially given that they like that in the trailer that he like straight up just like vomits psychic energy at somebody.
Yeah.
That's pretty solidly orcish. But you know, of course he's like armed to the teeth with a chainsword and then a gun rocket missile launcher. Belt fed though, just to make sure it really working. He gets good DACA.
Well, yeah, for accuracy, you know.
Yeah. All right, but now we get to it. The new edition changes. So there are a lot of changes, and there's a number of articles that I had to kind of get through to kind of piece them together because some of them kind of overlap, you know, with information. So I was kind of going through it. So I'm going to kind of go through this pretty well with just some of my thoughts, because you know, it's one of those things where these kind of help shape the game from a greater standpoint. Also because going to playing the games I did at Adepticon has renewed my fervor and enjoyment of just standard 40k. Not specifically 2k points, but at least as far as 10th edition is concerned, but like has very much reinvigorated my enjoyment of it. So that was good.
Sure.
So one of the kind of base, it's a change, but not obviously. So the big thing is going into this edition, it is not what you could call like a quote unquote like index edition. Whereas like at the beginning of 10th, every army's codex from 9th edition was, you know, kicked out the door. They threw it in the bonfire and they're like, you can't use it anymore. It's worthless. You're going to get this index, and that will have one detachment where then you can learn the new army, the new data sheets, and then your codexes will come out later and they will add stuff on top of that.
Interesting. Okay.
Honestly, I like the clean slate method every now and then. You know, it's good. It just helps with like the idea of like, all right, we're in a good spot. Because let me tell you, nothing sounded more overwhelming than the next announcement, which is that there would be 70 new detachments. That is
wow.
a 7 and a 0.
Okay.
That's insane. That sounds insane. Now, I am hoping that, and that's on launch, like not like with when the codexes come out. No, it's on launch. So that'll be wild.
Yeah.
That being said, though, I'm hoping that at least the codexes do come out sooner than they did with 9th edition. I think in 9th edition, because that was also like this, where the 8th edition codex is carried over. I'm hoping the thing that they do is that they don't kind of, I feel like they use that as a crutch. So like, for example, the Imperial Guard in 9th edition got their codex, and then 2 months later, they announced 10th edition. Something like that. It was rough. Guard players are having it rough. But I don't think that'll hurt as much in this scenario because it's mostly going to be, I think, all this extra detachment, I think, will help things because most armies right now are in a good spot. The only one that needs a codex, like it needs to be Space Marines, Orcs, and AdMech. They're the only ones that need it as soon as freaking possible because it is a travesty.
Okay.
It's so bad, and they just need that army needs to be completely like everyone was like, yeah, new codexes, except that one, throw that one in the trash.
Get that one out of here.
Yeah, it's universally hated. There are good detachments in it, and you can play the game, and you can win. People have won major tournaments in AdMech. It's not that it's unplayable; it's that it's less fun. And that's the problem. You want the game to be fun, you know? So they just need an overhaul. Like all their data sheets need to get redone as soon as possible. That being said, though, so the weird thing with attachments is they're kind of like parts, though. So like there's like, I don't know how the detachments are going to be set up now, but like when you're building an army, and we'll get to this in a second, like detachments are kind of like segments of like you could pick one point of a thing, like one objective from one detachment, one ability from another attachment, and one from potentially a third one, right? And so you can like piecemeal your detachment into one that you've created yourself. It seems, and so like having I wonder if that means like 70 options or like 70 groups of 3 things. That's one of curiosity. Because if it's like 70 like thirds, then like honestly, that's probably not too overwhelming. It still is a little bit, but not as much. If it's like 70 whole ass detachments with like 3 segments each, that is gonna be so overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you.
Now, granted, like 30 of them are gonna be for Space Marines, so it's like, all right, whatever. You know, the rest of the armies, the other 20, armies will, we'll split that amongst the remaining 40. So it won't, probably for most armies, it won't feel too bad. But anyway, the other crazy thing they're leaving behind is apparently the big round objective markers are going away. Which Bricky is in shatters right now. The funniest thing that he did was he changed on all of like the merch sales or like the Warhammer like creators that he partners with. He changed when they had like objective markers on their store. He changed the text of the objective marker to say drink coaster.
That's good.
His reaction in the video is so funny. He just is like, oh no. I said the same thing. I was like next, because I didn't go to the preview show with anybody. I was a loner. I'm a sad little boy.
Lone wolf.
Yeah. And but I like went to because I still just will like yap and like react to people that I'm next to. And I like when they said that, I was like, oh no, Bricky's in shambles right now. But so the thing is that they're going to be based on terrain, which I find interesting. My hope is that because of this, there's going to be potentially one of 2 things. First, that the terrain will be able to be whatever shape we want it to be again. So it could be literally anything. And we abandon this sort of like L-shaped terrain thing. Or that if anything, they will limit it so that the objectives are only the L-shaped terrain and then everything else can be different shapes. I'm sick of the L-shaped terrain being the only terrain. It's annoying as shit.
Oh, okay.
And it looks bad. Like on Sunday at Adepticon, I played on boards that like literally were essentially like Dawn of War, like in like terrain pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So like almost looked like a really big Dawn of War map that we were on. It was sick. I love that. You don't get that in competitive play anymore. Anyway, that's my hope with that. I hope that we get less L shape, but if anything, if there has to be any L shape, that's specifically the objective. But then everything else is just like whatever, it's terrain. Also, apparently, so one mechanical thing, terrain cover will only, or just being in cover, will only affect hits. So it'll affect the person who is shooting's like hit score. So you'll make it so it's 1x, 1 up. So if you hit on 3s, you hit on 4s instead. This is specifically beneficial for a couple things. For example, if like it doesn't make it where like a custodies is already better at making the saves, right? Like they already had a 2 up and now they have a cover save as well. Like, all right, basically they just save then. All right, cool. Like, so that part is a little bit beneficial. It also like doesn't help. It like essentially doesn't nullify armor pen, because like you can make the argument, right, that if it doesn't, whether or not you make the wound roll harder or you make the hit roll harder, at some point you are either making it easier for you to save or harder for them to wound, but it's still a dice roll that has to go through. But to me, the idea is putting the onus on the opponent does help just like make it where it's like, okay, you are the one who is negatively affected by me being in cover, right? So it's just kind of like it's like an optics benefit mainly, I feel like. Because whether or not your opponent has to add 1 to their roll, making it harder to hit you, or whether or not you remove 1, making it easier to make your save, it's still just a difference of 1.
Okay. Yeah.
But that could be 1 extra dice that you don't have to roll, right? Like, so that's just kind of I don't know. It's a weird, it's not like a crazy balance thing, but it's just like I think smooth of the game kind of thing. You also then don't have to be like, all right, but the AP was 2, but I have a +1 save with my cover. So I still get -1 AP to my, like you don't have to do that. You can just be like, all right, you're a cover. All right, I hit on 4s then instead. And that's it. That's the conversation is over about cover after that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, way into now, before the way it worked was when you declared a charge, you had to say, I'm charging that guy or that group. And then you rolled and hoped that you could charge them. Now you just roll and you're like, all right, I rolled a 7. Who's within 7 inches of me? And then you pick. That's so much better. I lost a game this week because I failed a charge. But if I had this rule, okay, I could have charged into someone else.
Yeah, you'd have an option.
Yeah. So that was a big thing. So I'm super glad that this is a thing now. It's just much nicer to me personally. This is a thing that I especially is good for me, but because I'm just terrible at using them at the right times. But I kind of like that we're now limiting stratagems to being used once per phase. Again, it's just the thing that because before you could stack stratagems, you could be like, all right, I'm gonna give them this and this and this, and just use all your command points. Like you could just stockpile until like the fight phase, like turn 4. And then it's like this really important fighter, like, all right, and now I'm going to dump everything on this guy. Just make them impossible to lose this fight.
Mm-hmm.
That never feels good. So that's the reason they're doing this. However, I like it because it makes the fact that I'm dumb really usable for the game.
Finally, a utility for dumb.
You're thinking of the... we're thinking of the smooth brain here.
Mm-hmm.
Finally. One thing actually I'm also really excited for. So the way they stated is just armies can disembark into combat. But from what I gauged, the way that they talked about it was that they made it sound like that this can actually happen during the charge phase. And the reason I ponder this or believe that this would be the case, because if you have to charge with your tank, right? Your transport tank. And then we'll say like Drukhari, right? A Drukhari raider charges into a group. They then have to wait till next turn to disembark, even though they can then disembark into combat. That raider's basically a sitting duck. They're just sitting there about to get shot the shit and like beat the hell out of him. Like, right? Like,
yeah,
you're putting yourself into a disadvantage immediately, where the whole point of the advantage of doing this is to charge, dump all the guys in the combat So not only now do you have this big tank that could run over some guys, but then also all of these witches come out of the raider, for example, and they'll do the damage, whittle them down. So then maybe your transport doesn't immediately get blown up by everyone around it. So that's a big thing I'm hoping for. That's the way that works. They weren't super hyper clear about it, but it's the only way that it makes sense for that to be a new rule, right? Because if you have to wait, then you're just a sitting duck. It'd be better to move, disembark, and then do charges with 2 things rather than 1. So that's what I'm hoping for. Otherwise, army building has a few changes. They're nothing crazy, but they're interesting. So here's a good little chart to reference as I'll talk about it. So first, the thing that was disappointing looking at this is that they don't seem to be recognizing 1500 points still as a specific play type or battle size. And that's a shame because I think 1500 is one of the best point things for 40k.
Mm-hmm.
Though if there is a general whole game wide points increase, so essentially 2000s points is how 1500 points used to be last edition, then I'm okay with this, right? But otherwise it's kind of lame. Otherwise, as I alluded to before, detachments are now not you build your army and then you decide we're going to specialize in this concept. You can decide I'm going to specialize in 2 to 3 concepts, but they're all a third of a concept. And then for example, you could be the example they gave to us was you could build an army that specializes in Terminators and bikes. Or for example, our Chaos Legion that we created, they would specialize in demon engines and sorcery or possessed, stuff like that. So then we could, you can kind of make it what you want. And I like that. As long as, especially then with this enhancement limit thing, if they make it where the enhancements aren't points anymore because they're just limiting it to 2 to 4, then that also is just nice because enhancements sometimes are weird to round out points for in a list. And then I felt like you just ended up not using them a lot. The other thing with the enhancements that's really cool is now you can add them to an upgraded unit. So say if I just have a standard Battle Sisters squad, I could say this is an upgraded unit potentially, and they get the enhancement that used to maybe only go on a character. So now this is a souped up Battle Sisters squad. And so it's just a narrative. I think it's a narrative win specifically. That's the whole thing about this edition, right? Is that they wanted to drive more of a narrative focus. Otherwise then the unit limit thing, I actually do like that because I think for the smaller games, kind of pushing you to try to essentially do less infantry, I think is good because it just gives you more variety. They don't show a 500 point thing. I'm hoping that they just abandon 500 point as a base concept and just bring Spearhead into 40k. That's my hope, but their Spearhead boxes are way too good compared to the Combat Patrol boxes. So I don't know that they'll be willing to do it.
Sure.
Because they've made these Combat Patrol boxes god awful this edition. This last edition, they were awful. Only a couple were decent. Let's see. Otherwise, yes. So then we get into the interesting thing to me, which is missions. So when you pick your detachment, one of the things you will choose is called a forced disposition. And so you will either have them do take and hold, disruption, purge the foe, priority assets, or reconnaissance for Kill Team fans out there, this is kind of similar to how certain kill teams can only pick from certain types of tac ops. So for example, some are able to pick between like search and destroy and why they've all escaped my brain. This is what's awesome is like when I go through this and then like they all just like leave me.
Sure.
I thought I had a card deck next to me on my desk, but it seems to have disappeared from me. Oh, there it is. All right. For example, if you were like the Tau Stealth Suit Squad, for example, you know, you could pick between. This is the wrong deck. I fucked it. Here we go. So yeah, you could choose between like infiltration or recon, you know, and then from there that changes how you do, you know, one of your main objectives for the game, right? Then because like from that, then you get to pick a recon objective. You decide, okay, I'm gonna do recon, and then I'll choose, you know, this is from the previous editions thing, but it's just like, all right, I'm gonna pick recon. I'll do confirm kill, you know, which is exactly what it sounds like if you've played Call of Duty. Just FYI.
Okay.
Whatever. So this kind of will work similarly to that. So the way it will work is your army chooses one of these dispositions. And then from that, then you're based on whatever your opponent has in their army. So like, for example, in this case, if you have a purge the foe, that's your disposition. You look into your, you know, this purge the foe like deck essentially, and you'll look for one. If your opponent is running disruption, then you'll look for the card that has opponent and then the disruption logo in it, and then that's your primary objective for this game.
Okay.
It's very interesting. I think the thing that I specifically like about them in most scenarios is that in the end of the day, most of them are pretty basic when it comes to just like that they have shown, at least, which they've only shown a couple. But it is just kind of like go to this spot and then like if either something has happened to it or you've done it, it turns into this, or it's just you score points because you're there, right? And that's the type of work. Those are the type of objectives that I like. I'm not into this whole like, all right, you got to get to the objective and then use an action and then you kick the objective toward, you know, 6 inches towards your opponent's deployment zone. I'm not into that. It's really weird. And I was not a fan of that type of thing. But like, for example, in this Death Trap one that it was the other example, you know, it has, you know, at the end of your turn during any battle round, one or more enemy units that started the turn within a terrain area were destroyed if that terrain area is trapped. Which is interesting because then it provides that there's an idea that you have planted a trap. And that's the type of stuff I'm okay with, where it's just like, I mark something for this objective, it's trapped. Now, when an enemy goes on it, then I put it in there. That's the type of like objective, like action thing that I'm okay with, because it's not like, all right, the objective now moves over there, or I have to do this extra thing. It's just like, I'm just instead of shooting this turn, I'm just putting a thing down to score a point. And in a way, it's good in this scenario because it's also, you're enticing them to come to you, which then triggers your booby trap. So I like that. I like stuff like that. That's cool. Maybe the one exception to like the moving objectives things was like at the very beginning of 10th edition, there was a mission where like you only started, I think, with like 2 objectives. And then essentially like at the end of various turns, like a unit would literally put an objective down on the board. It was kind of cool, but it was also very weird.
Gotcha.
Like I said, I only kind of like that. But that's basically what we know about how 11th edition will work as a game. I'm inherently very interested. There is much to be skeptical about, but I'm also still very interested. I think it's kind of the idea of just it's taking 10th edition, which honestly I still think was perfectly fine as a game. I know a lot of people didn't like it because of the simplicity it brought. I did personally. I thought it made it way more approachable for myself especially, but then other people that I know. And therefore then this now just adds, we're adding to it, right? We had an easy baseline. Now we're just adding on top, which is how I was hoping it would be. So all in all, pretty content with how things are. However, before April 1st, making sure that we don't think this is a joke, we were given a firmly Primarch sized little hinty bombshell. He's big, he's back, and he's as bitter as ever. The man, the myth, the legend, Perturabo is coming back.
Oh?
He's coming to the 41st millennium, or 42nd technically. And he's big. He's a big boy. Granted, some of this might be just from the artwork itself, but some of this obviously might be artwork stuff. But like, this man is kitted up. Like, he's got 6 exhaust vents coming out the top of him. He is They did not show a model. All we got was the artwork, right?
I'm not crazy, right? That's just like Midgar sitting on his back right there currently.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
We did get some other nifty Iron Warriors fighting a bunch of people artwork though. So that was also cool.
That's cool.
But
yeah.
Oh yeah,
that looks very cool.
So the things that we know, right, with Purdy. Every dispatch warband and recalled fleet is now since the beginning is part of Perturabo's intricate maneuvers. And so now his master stroke is at hand, and the time of the infinite citadel has come. That's straight from the Warcom site. So now essentially Perturabo has decided it is time to strike, and he will now slowly but surely and effectively expand the front lines towards the heart of the Imperium, no matter how long it might take. And essentially the Infinite Citadel seems to be like this mobile fortress. I wonder if it honestly is kind of like the Imperial Fist's Phalanx, where it is essentially just like a space fortress. And so battle by battle, this Infinite Citadel will creep its way towards Terra. And interestingly, the article made this quote: "Most importantly, the carnage and horrendous body count suffered in these pitiless battles serve to please the dark gods further, and soon the veil between real space and the Empyrean will be thin enough that the demon Primarch can finally walk upon Imperial soil again at will, and drop the killing blow in person." So this interests me for 2 reasons. A, it seems to indicate that Perturabo has kind of been stuck. We have known that Medrengard is in the Eye of Terror. We've known that. But there seems to imply that he's now kind of stuck there. But it appears that through the Infinite Citadel, he might be able to move within real space slightly, if anything, temporarily. And so what I wonder if that's kind of going to be their reason that he hasn't really been actively involved in the war, in the long war, that he's just kind of been like, I'm stuck here. So I'm just going to plan while I figure this stuff out. And I wonder, and the other thing that I find interesting about it is, for a long time, a lot of Iron Warriors fans held strong to the aspect that, hey, we hate chaos. We're not chaos worshipers. We're just renegades, right? But over time, GW has kind of very clearly made the shift that that's not the case. They are chaos space marines, right? They do utilize chaos. And part of that was in making them the main pushers for, demon engines and creating those demon engines, right? Like Hansu is kind of a big part of that. So this seems to indicate too that GW is kind of fully cementing this idea that the Iron Warriors are pretty much full chaosy now, that they have fallen in to the pool. Which, I mean, let's be real. If you're living in a chaos, like literally a world that is surrounded by the energies of chaos, it is a chaos planet. You're somehow there's gonna be nobody that's gonna be like, nah, I'm gonna ignore all this chaos around me. The protagonists of that Final Fantasy game couldn't ignore chaos that long. You think these guys are? So I don't care about that personally. Like I was happy with them being renegades. I started actually pretty early on the like Iron Warriors should stay as renegades. There should still be a renegade faction. I flipped around to being more just like, nah, bring in the chaos. Let's go. Bring it on.
Yeah.
So I don't really, I'm pretty content with however chaosy Space Marines can be. Because I'm gonna be honest, pure renegade Space Marines are kind of just assholes with like not much for redeemable qualities. When you fall to chaos, you're an asshole with no redeemable qualities, but it's because you're drunk with power. And that's interesting.
Sure.
I don't know. It's just something to be more interesting. Like, I think when you go renegade, it's a good story, but I do feel like in a lot of, and there are examples out there, I think, that are good for, ways that you could definitely make good stories about just a purely renegade chaos or like, renegade Space Marine chapter for sure. And honestly, like I have an opposite about like a lot of the humanity based characters where I actually do like when it's literally just they are rebelling. Like this Imperial Guard regiment is just rebelling. They're not into chaos. They're just rebelling. They're just like, nah, fuck you guys. It's more interesting to me when the like hyper, hypno indoctrinated super soldiers specifically get mad at dad and then join chaos instead. Like that's where I find more interest personally.
Yeah.
But I like the evolution for it, like the Badab War, right? Like learning why Huron goes renegade and just doesn't necessarily start as renegade. He's just like, nah, screw the administratum. I'll just get my shit done. And then they get mad at him and they press him more. And then he gives up. And then he gives up on the Emperor. Like 3/4 of the way through the war, he decides, nah, fuck the Emperor. and
change my mind.
Yeah. And then when they lose, he goes into the Eye of Terror or the Maelstrom. Sorry, the Maelstrom. And then eventually gets all chaosy. So I like that. But so I'm content with the Iron Warriors becoming chaosy. I know people aren't, and they're totally valid for not wanting it. I'm okay with it. And oh boy, am I excited for that launch. That's gonna be good. A bunch of Iron Wars things also just released for the Reign of Iron expansion that they just put into pre-order, but I'm excited for Perturabo to come back, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, sounds cool.
Also, because I just love the Iron Warriors. But all right. And we're up to date.
Really?
Yeah, pretty much. Everything else has just been new pre-orders. I mean, okay, I guess we didn't talk about this. I can show it quickly because it is a very cool night. Nights are cool. So I should bring it up, but we do have a new, like a mid-size, like between the really big night and the normal size night, not the Armiger, but like the standard night. And then there was like the really big night. There's one in the middle now. And it's called the Night Destrier.
Oh,
It's like what was it, Castellan, or it's the one that specifically is mostly used for Horus Heresy. We essentially got its 40k version with this, and I like the look of it. It's really cool. But that's mostly it. Really everything else was just like new, everything else was just kind of like other various new models. We've kind of referenced some of them before. Like there's a couple new like interesting Battle Force boxes. I wouldn't necessarily say they're really cool or interesting to me personally, but some people are into them. But I didn't feel like making it, I didn't feel like pushing too much on them. This was the stuff that I really wanted. Yeah. This was the stuff I really wanted to press in, especially because talking about the Defiler is kind of good because it works as a semi update for our Demon Engines episode. And we talked about the fact that like the Defiler was due for an update. And here it is. It has its update.
That Defiler, I know that was one of the first things you showed me, but that is also one of the coolest things, I feel like, looking at this whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was moving Medieval Times is really cool too. But yeah, that Defiler is sick.
Yeah, well that's just honestly like that's just a fun kit that you can just throw things into, like you could put goblins on there, you could put, you could use it for whatever. It's kind of cool. I like it. Fill it with ghosts. Because there's a literal ghost faction in AOS.
Cool.
Yeah. But anyway, that's all we got. Everything else is going to be new stuff. There's probably going to be new info by the time this episode releases, to be honest. But this is what we have at the time of this recording.
Okay. Cool.
There
you go. 11th edition. It's real. It's happening.
Yeah. And there's going to be a bunch of new lore, and get ready. We're going to be talking about Armageddon for a while soon.
Armageddon. Hey, man. I don't want to miss a thing. You feel me? Because it's
yeah.
It's because it's an Aerosmith song.
Yeah.
And it was for Armageddon.
Yep. No, yeah, I got it. I got you. So anyway,
just checking in for the audience.
Yeah.
They might not know the lore, they're thinking about they know Warhammer front to back, but they might not know.
Yeah, I know. That's why we're starting an Aerosmith lore podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the lead singer whose name I forgot. His favorite drink, which was, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was vodka and heroin. All right, next episode.
Amazing. Yeah, we'll spend 6 weeks on the Disney theme park ride. And then we'll spend another 6 weeks on the arcade game. And then we'll look at our engagement and be like, you know what? We should probably go back to talking about
Warhammer
Go
and
back.
Gundam. That might be.
Take it back.
Might need to swerve on back to what we were doing before.
All right. Next week, it'll be Warhammer. I promise.
What? Huh?
I'm sorry. See you later.
Goodbye.